Welcome to the Lindamood-Bell Leaders in Literacy webinar series. My name is Dave Kiva, Director of Development for Lindamood-Bell. And today I'm joined by two wonderful guests to talk about Denham Town High School in Kingston, Jamaica, and their mission to implement sensory cognitive instruction with their secondary level students, helping them change from non-readers into readers, and the impact that that had on the school community overall. So before we jump into introductions, this is our agenda for today. We'll give everybody an opportunity to talk a little bit about who they are and their background. We'll then segue into discussing Denham Town High School, the background for the school and the neighborhood that it sits in. We'll discuss what implementation of intensive literacy intervention looked like at Denham Town, and then what the next steps are for Jamaica as a whole, and what the vision is, and the hopes and dreams of the folks in this meeting and many other folks are for being able to change what literacy instruction looks like across the entire country. So if we start with introductions first, as I mentioned, my name's Dave Kiva. I'm Director of Development for Lindamood-Bell. And I've had the pleasure and the honor of visiting Jamaica multiple times to come down and help train and support teachers as they implement Lindamood-Bell with their students. And I think we began that all the way back in 2017, if I'm right. And it really has spread broadly across the country. But I think in many ways, the most dramatic impact has been at Denham Town. And that's why I'm excited to be able to talk about the experience there. And I think first I'll turn it over to the person who helped bring Lindamood-Bell down to Jamaica to begin with, and have Mandy Melville introduce herself.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm Mandy Melville, Joshua's mom, and this all started after taking my son Joshua to Lindamood-Bell over the summer holidays during Easter, what we have as Easter breaks, which is your March break, to the learning centers to do instruction with them. I went from a son who in the lower grades, grade 2, 3, he, was running away from school, to grade 6, where he realized how smart he is and how well he was doing. From that, his teachers asked, how can they learn the program that I used to take Joshua to? And that was when I called Lindamood-Bell in 2017 and asked, would you come to Jamaica and train a group of teachers? And here we are today, 7 years, we're in our 8th year later, we're still doing workshops. So thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Yvette.
Absolutely. And so I think we've trained something north of 300 plus teachers across the country now.
523.
Wow. So much better. 523. Sorry about that. And that's in every parish across the country. And so one of the places where we were fortunate to be able to train a number of teachers was at Denham Town High School. And, we often think about literacy. We think about very young students, but as Mandy was talking about, her son was much older and still continuing to struggle with reading. And our guest of honor, Yvette Richards-Thompson, it was dealing with this same issue with students even older than Joshua was. So Yvette, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about Denham Town High School as well?
Good morning. Thanks, Dave. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, Yvette.
It's so good to be a part of this webinar. I am Yvette Richards-Thompson. I'm the acting principal for Denham Town High School. It's a position I hold dear, and I am so proud of the changes, the transformation, and the achievements of the school so far. And I must say that it is to a large extent due to our partnership with Lindamood-Bell and this Creative Language-Based Learning Foundation, which has enabled us to create a new dynamic for the school, to change the general culture and the way we operate, and most importantly, just to empower our students. Our school, just to give us a background, in 2022 was really struggling. We were considered to be one of the worst performing schools according to the Ministry of Education's standards. And the truth is that we really were not performing. So let's call a spade a spade. We really were not performing. There were several issues. There were administrative issues, behavioral issues, but most importantly, there were literacy issues. And so because of the literacy issues, then our students generally were not performing well in the other subject areas. And so we came to a point where we had to make a decision as a school as to how do we move forward. And so we would have started to look at the contributing factors. And of course, the literacy issue stood out. So literacy seemed to have been the foundation for most of the issues we struggled with as a school. And so we decided that we're going to tackle the literacy issue, and as best as possible, we are going to see how best that would impact the general school population. So first started by researching programs, and we did research. We didn't just choose the Lindamood-Bell program by accident. It was a carefully researched process. We would have looked at several other programs. I think it was at about 16 at the time, 16 different literacy intervention programs, and would have selected the Lindamood-Bell processes because of what we thought was the fundamental principles of the program, that would not just be that the students would learn surface level content, but that it would get to their thought processes and the way they learned, and it would be something that they would actually stick with them, and we could actually get to see some results from them. And in selecting the program, we would have been introduced to Mandy, who Mandy is, for those of you who don't know, is basically turning Jamaica upside down at this moment, but in a really good way. So we struggled at first, to be honest, and in trying to find our way, we would have encountered several challenges. It was a whole school. So just to give you some data, at the time when we would have decided to start this program, there was less than 3% of our students who were reading at grade level. And bear in mind that we are a high school. So we are a high school, which the largest portion of our population was reading at what we call a pre-primary level, grade 1 level. And it was something that was just absolutely difficult. And so we had to look at how we would begin to change and, transform the learning atmosphere. First, getting high school children who were not reading to, one, accept the fact that they weren't reading, and not to look at themselves as being dumb or even worse than everybody else. That was a whole thing. Getting them to accept help and to feel confident in accepting that help was a challenge. Getting staff on board, because, we would have tried alternatives to fixing the problem, but it just wasn't working. So what we recognized was that we had to train a wide cross-section of our teachers who were not original literacy teachers, but get them trained in the program so that they could now deliver the literacy instruction. That was the only way we saw it could work. And of course, like many things which are new, there were teachers who just weren't on board. They felt as if they were more comfortable. It's understandable. They were more comfortable teaching their content area. And so, we had some issues there, but we did manage to convince some. And those persons who were willing to be trained initially, once the results started to show, then other persons came on board to the point where we now have about 26 of our teachers, which is more than half of our teaching population, trained to teach this program. So that means that every single department in our school, math, science, information technology, every department has teachers who are now trained to teach literacy. What that means is that not only can we deliver actual literacy instruction, but we can actually teach literacy in the content area, which we are now piloting. We're still trying to find our way with that aspect of it, because we originally started with the literacy camps and all of that, which we will go into a little bit more. But now we are trying a new approach, which is to actually teach the literacy through the different subject areas. It is an exciting process. And of course, it's coming with challenges, but with challenges, we learn and we adapt and we just move forward.
That's great. Thanks, Yvette, for that background on Denham Town and the experience. I mentioned a couple of times that I visited Denham Town High School, and I think you've talked a little bit about the challenges of low literacy rates, and what that often leads to is that children don't have an opportunity to go out into the world and be productive and get a job, because there's a basic degree of literacy that students need to have, and that in many cases, what the focus historically has often been for high school kids is to not recognize that underlying literacy issue, but treat it as primarily a discipline issue. And I was always fascinated when I came down and visited the school to see this building that said discipline, and it's got sort of a stairway leading to kind of a brick wall, right? And I thought about that as kind of a way of thinking that, if the focus is just about discipline, that doesn't take the kids anywhere. It's kind of like just running into a brick wall again and again and again, right? And that the focus has to be different than on just saying that these kids who are coming to these content areas, as you're mentioning, Yvette, and they can't read, well, they don't want to sit in that classroom then and be taught the content all day, because they can't access that content, right? And at Lindamood-Bell, we do focus on really what's called process-based instruction. So how do we develop the necessary underlying sensory cognitive functions that students need to access so that they can learn how to read? And as Yvette's talking about, these are students who, in many cases, didn't have basic sound symbol connection, right? And certainly they couldn't find those sounds within words, and they couldn't sound out words on the page. They then could not also, if they were able to sound it out, ultimately be able to recognize those. And so one of the main programs that we did with students and trained the teachers in was the Seeing Stars program, which focuses on developing students' phonemic awareness, as well as their symbol imagery, so their ability to picture letters and map those with sounds. The other program that we were training teachers in is the Visualizing and Verbalizing program. Again, this is about process-based instruction, but this is focused on developing what's called concept imagery. So a student's ability to kind of create almost a movie in their mind for language as it's coming in, right? So when they are sitting there and it's content-based instruction, that the students can picture for that content in their mind. And if they can do that, then they can summarize it. They can come up with a main idea. They can think critically about it, right? And that this focus on sensory cognitive instruction is one of the primary differentiators. I think Yvette was talking about looking at 16 different programs, right? That focus on sensory cognitive instruction and developing what those underlying processes are that students need in order to learn how to read was crucial. And also not easy. Yvette was talking about the teachers having to learn to be literacy instructors. What's also important is they had to provide differentiated instruction. That instruction looks different for these students and looks different for each of the kids in their groups. And so the teachers learn through a process of really Socratic engagement and constant back and forth with their students to change their instruction in response to where the students are showing their weaknesses are. Teach to those weaknesses and develop those areas of weakness into a strength so that students can become independent readers. And I'm just going to quickly wrap up with this piece, and then we'll talk more back to Yvette about the literacy camp itself. But when students make mistakes, and they're going to make mistakes, especially if they're non-readers, we have to find a way to engage them in a positive manner that helps them use that mistake, recognize what they did well, and develop their ability to compare what they did to what they were supposed to do, so that they can become a student who can fix a mistake themselves, and then they can become independent. And so if a student is reading a word like the letters C-A-T, for example, and they read it as cut, rather than telling the student that they're wrong. Yeah. That's right. Instead, we want to really engage them by saying, great job with your C saying k. When you say cut, what do you picture for that second letter? And if we cover over the word so they're not looking at it anymore, they can go back to their phonemic awareness. Cut. Oh, I'm picturing a U. And now I can give them more positive reinforcement. You're right. If there was a U there, that word would say cut. Now I can uncover the word, show them that second letter, and say, what letter do you picture here? Oh, it's an A. Great. What sound does A make? Oh, A says ah. Great. So what does the word say? And they fix it themselves and say cat. And the more you go through this very deliberate, explicit process, students really are engaged positively. So they're willing to listen to what the teacher is saying, and they're learning to problem solve for themselves. And I think, Yvette, I know I've seen you talk a lot before. I know that was a big change in terms of the instruction and a big change in the culture for the students in terms of how they felt about themselves.
I think our children, generally, they are the odds are stacked against them. So they come from homes with, in a lot of cases, broken families. They come from homes that are predisposed to violence. They have parents in many cases who have multiple children, have financial challenges. They have and then the violence is just a whole other thing. But then having them being here and be able to change not just them now, but the trajectory of their future for them to be able to see an alternate future. That is probably the most rewarding experiences that we have. We try to change generations. When we have a child who can't read, that child now learns to read. They have options for college. They have options for employment. And then they now can change the whole trajectory of the future of their families. You're looking at siblings now who are now going to have a different experience growing up and all of that. It's a whole generational change. And so why it is important for us to focus on this literacy issue, and I'm glad you said it earlier, is that I think in the past we have focused so much on addressing discipline because with the children being out of control, yes, you might automatically think it is a discipline issue, but at the fundamental root of it, it is not a discipline issue. The children, they can't read, so they act out. And when they act out, then we discipline them because they were rude. And so it just continued. But let me tell you, once we started with the literacy camps, because we would have conducted several camps. The first one we did it as a pilot, and believe me, the first week, the first day, we were like, what on earth did we put ourselves in? Like, I'm ready to go home. I don't know what we're doing. Really, what are we doing? And we were about to give up the first day, honestly, because taking children, and in that case, we would have piloted with 30 children first, and then we did a larger camp which included almost 80 children. So taking 30 non-readers, putting them into a space that they are doing literacy all day, every day. They are following a schedule. Bear in mind that sometimes they tend to hide from classes and they do all kind of things because they don't want you to know they can't read. But having them in this space now where they're actually required to sit down and participate and all of that, it was a challenge for them. So the first week, chaos. By the second week, we started to realize that they were adapting. They were actually learning. And by the third week, what we recognized was that these same children who were non-readers, and some of them, they still left the camp as non-readers, but based on where they came in, they started to develop not just confidence, but they also knew words, and they said they are able to associate the different sounds and all of that. And bear in mind, before, some of them didn't even know the letters of the alphabet. High school children not knowing the letters of the alphabet. To see the changes. By the third week, we saw a more disciplined. These children were now coming on time. They were coming before the teachers. When the teachers were absent, they were taking their cards and they knew exactly what they were working on. And they would actually start and help each other until the teacher showed up. So even though I think we had the second camp, I think it was Mandy, that the teachers were on strike. And when the teachers were on strike, the students still showed up. So it became a whole cultural change. As I said before, we were worried about the high school children adapting to a program which is teaching them now about letters of the alphabet. But I think the fundamentals of how the Lindamood-Bell process, especially seeing stars in terms of the error handling, not telling the child that they're stupid or whatever because they don't know what CAT is, but actually being able to say, oh, you got the C right. Yes, awesome job. All right, let's work on it. And constantly motivating them and giving them rewards. And we started to see changes in the behavior. Some of the worst behaving students who were part of that camp became leaders. Some of those worst behaving children, when they went back to their class and the teachers were trying to read for them, they said, listen, miss, I can read for myself. Bear in mind that they don't know everything, but they felt confident enough that they knew how to read. Bear in mind that they still only knew a few words at a time. But imagine taking up a paper for the first time. and actually being able to identify words on that paper. You don't know all the words, but you know enough. So now that level of confidence, so it push them more. I think we have had to navigate a lot of challenges. Challenges, I said, with staffing. We have had to pull our curriculum. We have had to redo timetables multiple times. The student schedules have had to change depending on what we're doing. We have had to pull teachers from their core areas. We have had to do so many things just to be able to adapt. But in adapting, the results that we saw, the teachers were more ready to accept some of those changes and to actually volunteer, which sometimes in the past they didn't. But it was amazing to see the teachers just take charge of the learning of the students, because a lot of them, I think, are just giving up. There are many times when I think as teacher, and I'm going to be very honest, it's like the problem is just seemed so big, so insurmountable. Like, I mean, we can't fix this. We can't fix this at all. And to see one program, being used to change that kind of mindset, or teachers are listening, it is possible. And then when we started to work with the Passport to Success program through Multicare Foundation, which address the behavioral issues, and underline everything we do, because the Lindamood process is, I first thought, like, what on earth is this? Because the children don't write anything. Which class do you go and children actually don't write anything? You just feel as if they're not learning anything. But once you see them started actually writing in the air, and they're following the different principles, and they're actually correcting us now when we're doing it wrong, just to let you know, Dave. But just to see that, and when I started to recognize that this thing is working, was when they could actually transfer knowledge now. Because at first I'm thinking, even though we would have gone through the process of research and we decided that this was the best program, I was still a little bit skeptical when I realized that these children weren't writing anything. And I think as teachers, we tend to associate a child writing with a child learning. But that's not necessarily the case, especially with this. Lindamood-Bell basically just flip it on its head. That doesn't work right now. But we have been blessed to have had a lot of success with this program. And I think other schools have also partnered with us and come to us, even though sometimes, I'm being honest, we are just trying to figure it out ourselves. I said it to Mandy the other day. There are schools which are coming to us now for help. And just to insert the part that we are no longer the worst performing school. We are now the model for transformation, as the ministry said. And even that comes with a lot, because we still have to maintain that. So we are constant. Even January, like 2 weeks ago, we would have had to change our curriculum again, because when I looked at the results, I was seeing like none of us were proud of that. We knew we could do more. So we said, all right, so we pulled it to the curriculum again, and we pulled it the schedule again, and we have redone that to give the children more instruction time. And we are now talking to the teachers to see how best we can now reintegrate. My heads of department are now meeting this week again to see how they can align everything that each other is doing. So we are constantly on the go. The process is never done. It's never done. I'm like, man, we work 24/7. I don't know how we sleep, but it's something that we are passionate about. And I think when you have someone like Mandy that literally does not benefit from she doesn't get a salary from, introducing this program in Jamaica at all. I know she has employees and they draw a salary, but she doesn't get anything. Or she can tell her she's only Joshua's mom. That's it. But to see the level of impact that this program has had in a small country like ours, because as I said, it's not just Denham Town. It is right across the island. It is at the primary level. It is at the high school level. I'm hoping that the ministry will see it fit to implement this right across the board at the basic school level, because then all of this will be erased. All of the issues we have with literacy will be fixed. And then, as we would have discussed, to have the teachers actually being trained, doing a course on this program in the Teachers College. So regardless of which school they fall in, they'll have this knowledge to be able to impact the students. Because I think sometimes as teachers, we can get discouraged, because when it looks as if it is just too much to handle, we will tend to just leave it alone. And it just takes a few persons. I mean, I got in a whole lot of trouble, and Mandy can tell you, for when we started, because we were just um we were trying something, and something with everything new, persons didn't necessarily see the benefit of it, and so you just had to push through the challenges and just navigate everything. But everything is a learning lesson, and I'm just grateful that with the level of support and impact that we have seen, that we are able to actually see actual transformation in the lives of students. We would have had two students who were in grade 10 last year, and those students really should not have been a part of the camp, but they were recommended by the form teacher because they were just not performing at all. And those students would have sat the external examination, City and Guilds, with all students nationally, well, internationally, I must say. And they would have passed their math and English. And that, I think, is probably one of the biggest success stories coming out of this. Is, yes, we have children who would have moved by several grade levels in literacy, several. But I think when children who had no opportunity possible to sit an exam and pass it can actually learn enough. And I'm sure these children still have their literacy issues. I'm sure the comprehension still needs to be developed and all of that. But at the same time, they knew enough that they could actually sit this examination and do well at it. And that, I think, is a motivation, not just for the students who are here now, but for the generations to come, because they will now see themselves, even if they come into the school and they are not reading, they understand at this school that there's an opportunity for them to learn. And as much as possible, we involve the parents, because we have parents who are not reading as well. So we would have had a whole parents month in November, where we would have brought in parents, would have taught them how to teach their children, how to support their children, and how to support our efforts here at school. And every camp, we actually do have parent conferences. So it's the process works. It's just a matter of persons being able to just buy into it, because there is so much data that it works.
Yeah. Thank you, Yvette. And that really comes down to leadership and driving that bus, Yvette. And I think that's hats off to you for driving all of that. It is amazing work. And I think you talked about many of the items that we were talking about here. I was going to say, here's a picture of us with some happy kids there. And it was really exciting to see the kids working. And you're right, Yvette, they do sit down and they do the cards together with each other. It's fantastic. You did tell me once a story about what was happening with the local police station, and I wonder if maybe you could flesh that story out for the folks watching the webinar.
Well, we were, I'm trying to find a very nice way to put it. The police basically were functioning as teachers because they were always on the campus. I think probably that's the nicest way I can find. We had visits with the police every day. Like, the discipline was so bad that we had multiple cases of students being at the station every day. The police would be called to our school so often that, I mean, we have the police on speed dial. The police are our friends, because it is just the frequency of the issues. And at one point, a judge first came because she wanted to know what was happening at school. And because they weren't seeing many of our students in front of the family court anymore. And then the police also were noting that we didn't have as many cases. And then by last year now, we didn't really have any case at all at the station. So now the police do pass through, but it's just to check, say hi, how we're doing, everything all right, and to work on different programs like self-esteem. We are now working on something with them for Valentine's Day, just to teach the children how to love correctly. So in terms of discipline, and I said to a student yesterday, and I said, when was the last time we had a fight on campus? And he was like, Miss, I really can't remember. Like, we don't have fights. And believe me, I was one of those teachers who wear my flat shoes every day because I had to prepare myself in case I had to go part a fight. And we had at one point like 8 security guards, and this is in addition to the persons we had employed here to work as watchmen. This is in addition to grade supervisors and teachers who were manning the campus. 8 security guards. We had one place on each block. We had to purchase walkie-talkies just to be able to maintain control, and so if a fight happens, we can respond immediately. Now I literally have three guards. One is at the front gate, one is at the second gate, and the other is just available in case I need someone to run for me. That's it. We don't have these big outbursts anymore. And I genuinely can't remember when last we had a fight. In terms of discipline, there still are some minor infractions because they are children.
Yeah.
But these are issues that you can call them, and sometimes, but when they come before you, they themselves can tell you exactly who was wrong. And it's probably one of my funnest things right now, just to let them choose their own punishment, because sometimes the things that they come up with is just absolutely amazing. But sometimes it's more than what I would give them as punishment. But I mean, now they're begging not to be sent home. They're begging not to be, and I'm not sending them home because we don't need to send them home. But it is just a completely different environment. I mean, I'm actually in a webinar at school. Any noise in the background? No, I can actually do this. And my office is adjoining the grade 11 block, and there's no noise outside. So that tells you everything that is happening here. I said we're still not perfect. We're still trying to fix that. We are constantly looking at our data to see where the gaps are and how we fix them. But in terms of just overall school's operation, it's just amazing. And I think one of the best things was that the students started to take ownership of the school. The students. When even as a principal, I think it was last year, October, I was summoned to a meeting by the student council. The student council wrote to me because they wanted to discuss, plans that they had for the school. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but I've never had that experience before. I've never had them coming. I mean, our office now, I said it to the secretary yesterday, our students, for some reason, love the principal office and administrative office. I mean, I don't know of any other school that they visit the office as much as they visit this office. And
Great.
so it shows that there is a change, a drastic change in the culture of the school, because usually, when they go to the principal office, usually for disciplinary issues, but now it's just basically to share their views, and they want to have this event and they want to have that and all of that. So, it's a whole change, and I'm enjoying the change. I can actually get some work done.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I was going to talk a little bit about data, but to be honest, Yvette, I think you really hit it out of the park. Students did improve multiple grade levels when we looked at the kids who were getting instruction intensively, and that those early parts of that sort of what we think about as a cascade for reading outcomes, those beginning foundational pieces of literacy were the ones that changed the most for students. And I think it really does become self-empowering them when they can, as you're describing, pick up a paper and be able to read words that they've never been able to read before. And I, wanted to contrast that earlier picture of the discipline building with the mural that is there now. And that it's just incredible, the transformation that you're talking about, and that now, rather than it being a focus of discipline at the school, the focus is on helping students grow into becoming independent learners and independent citizens of the nation. And I think you've done really amazing work there, Yvette.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mandy's
absolutely.
fault.
I was going to say, and Mandy, I know you've been sort of quiet there. Did you want to add? Yeah.
It's just been an incredible experience. As Yvette said, there were so many days I cried. I thought this was it. As she said, I am a mummy on a mission. And there were days where I thought, okay, we are at the end of creative language-based learning. CLBL is history. We have not made it through, but we've learned so much together and been able to make incredible changes. And I thank the Ministry of Education, because as I said, I'm just a mummy on a mission to help. And through their guidance, their support, I call them all the time and ask, can I do this? How do I do this? And I get the correct guidance, the way to do it. And we have been successful. Through principals and teachers who have worked with me, we need to change the way we're doing this, etc., just to be able to listen to them, hear what they've had to say. When Yvette and her team called and said, okay, we have the kids learning now, but how do we help them with their emotions and behavioral issues? And I said, okay, well, let's call Multicare Youth Foundation, which is the local arm of the International Youth Foundation. And they have the Passport to Success program, which gives students the life skills to be employable and trains them in how to, control their feelings and their behavior through cognitive behavioral therapy, training the teachers that can then work with the students. And that's been amazing because I wasn't sure what to do, but I knew if we made a call to Alicia Glaslow-Gentles at Multicare Youth Foundation, which Yvette did, we could help. And the International Youth Foundation has just been amazing in taking it to another level with us. So to thank all those different persons within the ministry and other organizations that have made this happen, it's been a dream that I couldn't imagine all of this happening. So thank you. And Lindamood-Bell, they've been so generous. The kits that they've donated to the Denham Town High School, all the support they've given us at no additional cost, for believing in Denham Town High School, in Yvette, in Mandy, that we could do this. And they would be there for a session and the teachers may not be there, or the students didn't come, and they didn't give up. They said, okay, tomorrow. Yeah. So thank you very, very much. It's been an experience, and I love having the opportunity to all the donors that have made this possible, because we're a foundation. We don't charge for anything we do. We raise the funds to be able to give back to Jamaica, to give back to the children who'd never have had this opportunity. So thank you all.
Dynamite. Dynamite. Well, thank you, Mandy, for closing us out on that. And thank you so much, Yvette, for joining us. I know your schedule is incredibly busy. And thank you for the work that you've done, at Lindamood-Bell, where we really are.
There's one person I think we forgot to mention, Mr. Peart, Mr. Howard Peart. I don't think we would have had this program in the school without Mr. Peart. Mr. Peart did the research. He's our former literacy coordinator. He did the research. He is the method to his madness, because his brain works over time, and he just is absolutely phenomenal. And our deputy chairman, Mr. Jermaine Hyatt, who unfortunately would have passed last month, he pushed. And even when it seemed like it wasn't going to work, he pushed and he pushed and he supported and he diverted funds where we needed to go to ensure that this program would have been successful. And I really don't think that we could have been successful without their input. And so even though they're no longer physically here on campus, Mr. Peart is very much alive. He's on retirement, but I think we really have to give credit where credit is due. And, the board of management overall, which would have seen it fit. As Mandy said, the Ministry of Education, through everything would have done, the ministry would have given support. And Dave, I'm not sure how much you know, but the Ministry of Education now with, through CLBL is now ensuring that the program is in many schools. And so schools which probably would not have had access in the past, and Mandy would tell her that Mandy knows more persons at the Ministry of Education than I do, just to let you know. So Mandy's actually making connection with persons that, I am a principal, and Mandy knows those persons more than me, to show you the level of work that she would have put in. And so without Mandy actually getting the concept to say, listen, we can actually change the landscape of literacy in Jamaica. And I really do hope that the ministry would support CLBL more to ensure that this programs get into every single early childhood institution, because I really do believe that if we get this program into those schools, we can see a drastic change in how literacy is treated at basically every level. Because I know we will have some persons who will fall through the cracks, but we will be there to catch those. But for everybody else, I think that the program just needs to be widespread. And then, so internationally now, I think between Dave and Mandy need to figure out how to get it to the other islands and how to get it across the world. I leave that part to you. I'll just focus on Denham Town.
Thank you so much, Yvette.
But
And yeah, I'd say Lindamood-Bell feels honored and privileged to have the opportunity to work in Jamaica. And we're so excited about the work that is happening down there. And so unfortunately, we've got to wrap up our conversation for today, but thank you, Yvette, and thank you, Mandy, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for signing on. Come on back to the website. We'll be having another Leaders in Literacy webinar event in the short future. Again, my name is Dave Kivita. My contact information is there on the slide. Feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to put you in touch with either Yvette or Mandy if you have questions or want to learn more about the work that they're doing. Thank you all so much for joining us.